Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. And any questions that come up, please ask them in the chat window as we go. I will be doing some screen sharing. And so any questions that you have, or if you need me to slow down, just let me know. Our topic tonight is going to be about how to pick a compliant product to develop for private label. My goal here is for people who have never thought about compliance before to really think about and understand the risks when you're trying to develop your own product and you haven't been thinking about compliance. The biggest pet peeve that I have, by far the biggest pet peeve that I have, is how people will absolutely pay for a lawyer. They will go to a doctor when they're sick. And yet these are the same people who will go about developing a product without ever talking to someone who really understands product development, without ever talking to someone who really gets how to do compliance. So that's my biggest pet peeve. It's something I've been talking about ever since I got into the Amazon seller community. It is what I worked on when I was at Amazon, which is global compliance. And I'm very focused on making sure that companies really understand the risks that they're taking when they just buy stuff and ship it, and it's not just risks with your own products, as in you could get in trouble for selling something that's illegal. It's also the actual risk of one of your customers, the people who trust you and are buying this from you, the actual risk that they could get harmed. And that to me is a pretty darn significant risk. So let's go over some of the features that I look at when I'm looking for compliance information, and start taking a look at some specific products and go through the whole process of basically trying to pick a product. Okay, so I'm going to screen share, and bear with me if this takes a minute, since this tool can be a bit finicky. Okay, so we should be on Amazon.com. Please let me know if you are not seeing the screen share. Let's see. Again, with the finicky, it looked like it was working, and then, okay. So again, let me know if it is working or if it's not. So we're on Amazon, and I get questions all the time about what kind of product someone should do. What should they try to take on? Is this a good project idea? Is this not a good project idea? So what I'm going to do is I am going to search for, let's just do pregnancy pillow. This is one of my favorite product examples. And again, if you can't see the screen, please let me know. Okay, so when I search for pregnancy pillow on Amazon.com, and you can always follow along on your own computer, just to make sure that you've got the same thing saved on your own computer. So the first result, the first organic result for pregnancy pillow is the S2B Mom Premium Contoured Total Body Pillow. And that is for $47.99. But the actual bestseller, the one that's coming in number 2 in our search results, are the Leach Coast Snuggle Total Body Pillow Ivory. Now, you may wonder, why is the number 1 result that's popping up not the number 1 bestseller? And part of that is because what Amazon will actually do when something is new is they'll actually pop it into page 1 and see if people click on it and see if it's a relevant search result for searchers of that particular term. And then basically that helps to build up the organic search results for that product. So you do see sometimes random things where you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would that be number 1 instead of the other thing being number 1? Especially since Leach Co is such a well-known product. But that's the reason why Amazon will test out products, see how they fare, see if they click. That's how, even if you don't even do any pay-per-click at all, you can still end up on page 1 occasionally. Okay. So if you have any questions, please let me know as we go. All right, so with the body pillow, what I usually want to do first, the very first step that I try to do is figuring out if it's a product that even makes sense. And the way that I do that is by looking at the competition. So if I go through here, I'm scrolling down, everything is a body pillow, everything's a body pillow. There's STB Mom, Leech Co., Farmy Doc, Naomi Home, Snoogle, Remedy, U-Shaped, Leech Co., Queen Rose. And then I run into this thing called a Boppy Pregnancy Wedge, which is not what I looked for. Then there's a Farmy Doc. So everything on page 1 is still a pregnancy pillow. So I go on page 2, I see if it's still a pregnancy pillow. The 4th one down is actually Belly Butter, not a pregnancy pillow. Then I keep going and I see a variety of different kinds of pillows. I keep going and I'm seeing mostly pregnancy pillows, but now something called an Earthlight Pregnancy Cushion, which looks like some sort of massage table type thing. Keep going, and now I'm on page 3, and I'm still getting pregnancy pillows. Now there's a belly band pregnancy wedge. So I'm getting a lot more non-pregnancy pillows now. So what I usually look for when I'm choosing a product is I don't want to see more than 2 solid pages of actual results. Otherwise, you're going to have a really hard time getting in. The other thing that you want to look for is on the first page, see which ones organically have made it to the first page. In this case, we have this item that has 8 reviews, 4 stars on average, and that's made it to the first page. Another one that is 4.5 stars and 13 reviews that made it to the first page. The Farmy Doc only has 36 reviews. It's on the first page. There's one with 92 reviews on the first page. So you can get on the first page without too much effort if you've got a good detail page and well-trafficked keywords. So that's the other thing I look for. So I look for how deep is the product, how many pages deep do I have to go before I find alternatives. And the second thing is how crowded is the competition on page 1? Because again, as everyone knows, from having searched on Amazon yourself, what's the joke? The best place to hide a body is on Amazon page 10. So again, we want to make sure that we are able to be found if we're going to do this product. Okay, so now I'm like, okay, so pregnancy pill, let's see what there is. So the first thing I'm going to do when searching for risky products, if you're talking about food and drugs, cosmetics, all of those, you should start your search on fda.gov. So that is fda.gov. I'm typing that into the search terms. The place that you should go for most products, though, is cpsc.gov. And the CPSC is the Consumer Product Safety Commission. And the Consumer Product Safety Commission is responsible for pretty much all of the consumer products except for the ones that are owned by another agency. And some agencies own maybe like 1 or 2 product types. Some agencies own many, many, many hundreds of product types. There's over 40 federal agencies, and all of them have some sort of impact on public health or safety, depending on what kind of requirements there are, what kind of products you're talking about. So even the Coast Guard, for example, has regulatory oversight on any products that are used entirely in maritime conditions. So if you have a Garmin Blue Chart, then that is a Garmin tool that is for use just on a boat. And for that, if something is wrong with it, actually the Coast Guard does have jurisdiction. Then you have things like NHTSA and HTSA, and they have full responsibility for all motor vehicles and things that are in motor vehicles. So here's an interesting one, and this happens a lot in the US, which is kind of annoying. One of those removable car seats, the kind that can pop into a stroller or into a car, that actually has 2 competing jurisdictions. One is NHTSA, one is CPSC. The CPSC regulates the product when it is on the stroller, and NHTSA regulates the product when it's in the car. So that can be kind of annoying to try to think about who has jurisdiction and why. Sometimes there is competing jurisdiction. Another example of that between FDA and CPSC is FDA has jurisdiction over the contents of a supplement bottle or an OTC drugs bottle or any sort of type of food type item. And CPSC actually has jurisdiction over the packaging safety. So you actually can sometimes see recalls for products that don't pass the child safe packaging requirements. And those are recalled by CPSC, even though they're a food and drug item. So the most important thing to start with is who regulates my product. Now with a pregnancy pill, I know that's going to be regulated by 2 different agencies. And I know this because if I do a simple Google search, which has already popped up, and I type in pregnancy pillow regulations, let's see. Oh, this is interesting. There's a recall of maternity and nursing pillows. I'm going to open that up in a new tab and look at that. Ah, here's what I'm looking for. Searches related to pregnancy pillow regulations, label requirements for pillows. So I'm going to look that up and see if I can get a better result. And now, based on this Google search, excuse me, still getting over sickness, I see US law label, I see ftc.gov, I see that there's some sort of URN requirement, I see that there's some sort of home textile requirement from Nordstrom. Now, this really is interesting to me because the thing with Nordstrom is that they typically will have the most detailed requirements. So Nordstrom is a very high, I guess the best way to put it is high quality department store. And so if I click on this, I'm probably going to get all of the potential requirements that are out there for my pregnancy pillow. I love finding this stuff online. Technically, you're not supposed to, but sometimes people put the wrong permissions on their documents, and it makes it out there. And I've seen lots of different kinds of retailer guidance that's on the web, and it can be very convenient. Now, this is from August 2010, so just keep that in mind that it might be old and laws do change. So according to this, let me put the link in the search here. According to this, which is nordstromsupplier.com, if you searched for label requirements for pregnancy pillow, you'll be able to find it. According to this, there is FPLA requirements. FPLA is the Fair Packaging and Labeling Act, which requires labeling for all products. The FTC has requirements. There's bedding label laws, which appear to be at the state level, and there's a flammability law, which also appears to be at the state level. So the most important thing that you can do when you first start out is find those requirements. And you can usually do this pretty easily with a Google search. The second thing I like to do is look for recalls, which is why I was excited to see this. So this one is recalled, and it was recalled. It's a Big V maternity and nursing pillow. And it says if infants are placed on these pillows and left unattended, there's a risk of suffocation. Infant pillows and cushions are banned under federal law. Infant pillows have flexible fabric covering, are loosely filled with plastic beads, easily flattened, and capable of conforming to the body or face of an infant. Now that's the hazard, because if it conforms to the body or face, that means they can't breathe, and so they'll suffocate. So in this case, looks like this product wasn't firm enough because it was filled with beads instead of polyester fiberfill. And so it could impact the health and safety of the infant who would be nursing on it. Now, the biggest problem here, of course, is that they've labeled it a nursing pillow. By nursing pillow, by that label, by claiming that, now you are responsible for the safety of the child who is nursing. So this is a big thing that people don't think about when they're thinking about the claims or the description. They're just thinking, oh, this is a really cool pregnancy pillow. People could totally use it for nursing. Wouldn't that be brilliant? Well, maybe. In this case, not at all, because that's actually what caused it to be recalled. Okay. So the other area that's good to look at is saferproducts.gov. And saferproducts.gov is a place, kind of a clearinghouse that was created about 6 years ago now. And it's basically a list of all of the things that have been complained about. So I am going to look here for pregnancy pillow in the search, and it'll find any recalls, repairs, and reports that have been done there. So it looks like there haven't been any, which is great. And I see that there isn't anything for pregnancy pillow, but there is something for pillow. So let's see what there might be here. So basically anything where pillow is in the search terms, it's going to find it. So I'm seeing toys, buggy cars, Build-A-Bear Workshop, Sleep Innovations recalls pillows sold exclusively at Costco. Metal fragments pose abrasion hazard. So this is an interesting feature of recalls that you guys should know from a risk perspective. There is a standard procedure when you have any sort of textile items that includes having a metal detector at the factory. And this is something that you would find in a factory audit. So normally you'd be able to find this in a factory audit. You would have the auditor ask if there is a metal detector. They might have a big machine. They might have handheld metal detectors. Either way, they need to have one and they need to have a method. They also need to have a broken needle policy. The broken needle policy is basically if a needle is broken during the production of any product, they should have a little booklet where they keep track of those needles and keep numbers. So everyone has an issued set of needles and they keep track of those so that things like this don't happen, which is that the hazard may contain small metal fabrics, fragments in the fiber fill as a result of a mechanical breakdown of the manufacturing process. That's pretty terrible. So in the manufacturing process, somehow little bits of metal came off in the pillow. And you imagine you're sleeping and you rub your face in your pillow and scratch. There's a nice scratch in your face. That's awesome. So in that case, that's actually not a regulatory issue. That's a manufacturing issue. So basically, in this situation, you have two things that you should be thinking about in terms of risk. The first is which agencies regulate the product. And you can usually find that pretty easily through a Google search or through searching with the word recall, or going on saferproducts.gov and searching. Sometimes saferproducts.gov has non-standard products. Sometimes it has only CPSC products. I would suggest if you're looking at something that is food or drug, if you go to FDA.gov, and under search FDA, put in the type of product that you're thinking of making, such as, say, mascara. So if we do mascara, on the left-hand side, you say filter by topics. And in the topics here, you see cosmetics, food, public information, drugs, medical devices, animal and veterinary, vaccines, blood, and biologics. In this case, there isn't anything that I'm looking for, which is warning letters. So let me try something else. A lot of people do supplements. So let's do, say, what's a good supplement name? I've done so many now that are like flying away from my mind. How about a HCG pill? This is something that has been kind of popular over the years as a weight loss device. And according to this, let's do HCG is what we're looking for. And in this, you can see on the left-hand side, if you're searching on U.S. Food and Drug Administration in the Search FDA button, you can see that on the left-hand side, fourth down from the left, the thing called warning letters. And that's what you're looking for when you're on FDA.gov. So when you're looking at the warning letters, what you're trying to see here is exactly what people are getting warned for. So I can see here that the #1 warning letter is Gregory Tracy. And Gregory Tracy was warned for having an HCG serum. And according to this, it looks like there are some lab report issues and that, let's see, the subject received the wrong amount of the pill. So that's really not that important from a customer standpoint. But what you want to do is you want to look at the warning letters. Then you can determine based on the warning letters whether you have a potential problem from a safety perspective. You can also actually read the regulations, but that can be kind of #1 thing that we usually see when we have new clients come to us is they just don't even know what the tools are in their potential repertoire to use. So I would say the #1 thing is don't get a sample from a supplier, then assume that that's what the supplier can actually do. That's the biggest risk that you have. You cannot just assume that the supplier will produce to the sample that you get. It's especially a problem with trading companies because they could be farming out your production to multiple factories and they're not telling you this. The second thing is that you need to do inspections. If you aren't doing inspections, then you have a problem. And what do I mean by inspection? I mean actually having an accredited third party go out to the factory and evaluate the product for its quality and its actual cosmetic features. So some things you can do that are actually in-house tests at the factory. Other things are just cosmetic quality type considerations. Either way, you don't want to take possession of those goods until they've been looked at and evaluated. Another thing that we do is a during production inspection. A lot of people are very familiar with pre-shipment inspections, so checking before shipment. But a during production inspection is for when you've just started production. You've never actually worked with this factory before. They're completely new to you. So you send in an inspector when production is at 20%. They will go through everything and provide you with a report and tell you if production is actually meeting the expectation. So the reason why I harp so much on actual manufacturing processes and what's happening at the factory is you could have a very compliant sample. You could have the most perfect label. You could follow all the rules when it comes to your registrations, when it comes to your documents, not as though everyone does, but you could. And you still could have a recall because you haven't thought about the ways that the actual production can go wrong. So whenever I think about production issues, I'm actually thinking about things that have happened either to our clients or things that have happened to me when I was working in promotional products. Those were actually the worst because promotional products are usually on the lower end in terms of quality. And so you have very interesting approaches to solving problems at some of those factories. And then when I was at Amazon as well, a lot of problems occur just in the manufacturing process. You could have a great design. You could have a sample that passes. You could have testing samples that pass. And then the actual manufacturing process just introduces products into the line, product issues into the line. I think my favorite example of this was at a particular factory that we worked with, and we kept seeing weird inconsistencies in the feedback. Some people really loved the product. Some people were really upset by it. And we found when we did a evaluation of the factory, a factory audit, having external auditors go into the factory and take a look at it, what we found was that there was a woman who was doing soldering who actually hadn't passed her soldering exam. So she'd gone through the course, she'd taken the exam, and then she had failed the exam, and they still gave her the job. So that's obviously a pretty significant problem. So that's the kind of thing that we're really looking for. So if you're trying to find a product, the very first thing that you should do is decide if it can actually make money. So that's just the revenue perspective. Look at a potential sales estimator like Ace Inspector or Jungle Scout. Basically take Jungle Scout down about 15 to 20%. They apparently have gotten more accurate since the incentivized reviews got taken down. But when I last looked at them, they were off by up to 25%. So really downgrade that number. Then once you've decided that they can make money, then go look at the regulatory requirements. Is this even something that you want to deal with? For example, I would never in a million years, ever import anything for children's sleepwear. Ever. I cannot emphasize this enough. It has the worst regulatory requirements on the books for anything other than food or drugs or medical devices. Absolutely awful. So I just wouldn't import it ever. So there's that. And then if you've already decided that the regulatory issues are things that you can live with, they're not too bad, they're a labeling issue, or they're just a couple $100 in testing, or no more than like $1,000 in testing. Sometimes testing can be a lot, sometimes it can be very cheap. Then you need to think about safety. So safety is what we talked about in the manufacturing process. Just because you have a pillow doesn't mean it's automatically safe. There could be manufacturing defects that result in bits of metal getting into the pillow. And then the third thing you need to think about is quality. And part of that is because a really egregious product issue in terms of quality can turn into a safety issue. So a really poor quality item could end up breaking and then smacking someone in the face or lacerating them or something like that. So poor quality can have safety issues. And Amazon has, let's just say, low tolerance for safety issues for customers, especially now. I'm sure most of you have seen the rollout of the new dashboard where it actually has product safety issues on the main page. So now you have to be even more careful in that there is not just an expectation that you have a safe product from a regulatory perspective, but in addition to that, Amazon is actually enforcing on good quality as well. So when you're thinking about your compliance process, when you're thinking about your development process, decide if it can make money, then go through, all right, what's my regulatory issues? What are my safety issues? What are my quality issues potentially? And then if you're willing to go through with all of those and it's not a deal breaker, then the fourth section in that is then to figure out what kind of prices you might be looking at. So in that case, I suggest going to global sources, but always remember that they're generally going to post their best prices. So inflate that by around 40%. So if they say have something that's for sale for $1, then calculate $1.40. See if you can still make a profit. If you can't, then you may need to buy a higher MOQ, or you may need to have some sort of feature change. The other thing is that it's way, way easier to get a good factory to produce down than to get a bad factory to produce up. So it's better to work with a better factory and then change out some of the materials to be cheaper if you want it to be cheaper, than to start with a cheap factory and then try to improve over time. Okay, so that's my presentation on selecting a product. In general, I would say that people spend a little bit too much time on the numbers and a little bit too little time on making sure their product is safe and of good quality. So spend more time on that. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out at www.thinkcascadia.com. We love to work with our clients in being proactive in developing great products. And also, if you happen to get one of those product safety warnings, or if you happen to have an account suspension issue because of your product safety warnings or your product quality warnings or authenticity, a lot of times authenticity is actually due to poor packaging, for example. We do all these kind of things to help with product development improvements. So a lot of these can be easily fixed by going to the factory, by making changes with how you label, how you pictured your product. And that really is down to understanding how Amazon responds to product development, which we kind of specialize in. So that's our thing. If there are any questions, please let me know now. You can chat in the Webinar Jam window. Otherwise, you can always put them in the comments in the YouTube link when this is published on YouTube, and we will do our best to answer those comments there. And thank you so much for watching.